Is brand Sussex dead? And are Harry and Meghan the ones who killed it? Hello everyone, welcome to Royal News Network. My name is Brittany, and today we are talking about the continued fallout of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's dramatic paparazzi chase through the streets of Manhattan, which apparently probably did not happen, which resulted in them going to police stations multiple times, getting in a taxi for an inexplicable reason, because anybody with half a brain knows for security reasons that you would not put your principals in the back of a taxi cab. And so many other questions about this ridiculous story Harry and Meghan promoted. And what's really happening is that we're beginning to see brand Sussex crumble. Brand Sussex, whatever hope it had of resurrecting itself, especially William Morris and Endeavor, which paid perhaps millions of dollars to sign Meghan Markle, is officially dead in the water. And the main reason is lack of credibility. And I'm going to give you guys 4 reasons why I think this crumbling, cratering credibility that Harry and Meghan have is what's really going to kill brand Sussex. And because of that, there's not really a way back, because at the end of the day, when you have a product, you need the trust of the people. And if you don't have that, you don't really have a lot of hope for the future. But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel I provide compelling royal commentary about the latest news and sometimes a little bit of gossip too. In addition, I will be reviewing television shows and movies and sharing a bit about history. So if you guys want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. We're closing in hopefully soon on 115,000, but I'd really love to get to 125 here pretty soon. So if you guys want to subscribe and see more amazing content, I would love to have you back. In addition, I also have a weekly newsletter, Royal Wire. I also have a fashion channel, so if you want to see the best and worst fashion looks of the week, in addition to some of the royal items that I have purchased that our royal ladies have worn or used, all those videos will be there on that channel. I'd love to have you there. And I also have, just really quick, a trip upcoming to Germany and Austria. So if you want to talk about all this amazing royal gossip with me in person for over a couple of days while going to incredibly scenic locations in Germany and Austria and visiting some of the most impressive palaces in Europe, I would love to have you come. It'll be amazing, and it'll be just so fun and incredible, especially Neuschwanstein. I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. And it was the inspiration for Disney's Cinderella Castle. So it is an impressive place, and not entirely finished inside, actually, because they ran out of money because it was very expensive to create. So guys, all that information will be down below, and I can't wait for you guys to check it out. Also, we have Catherine, the Princess of Wales. She was at the Anna Freud Center today talking about mental health, because it is Mental Health Awareness Week, which I think something her brother-in-law and sister-in-law could really need is some actual real therapy without hallucinogenics. And Catherine did this quick little video about anxiety, so go ahead and check it out here.
I've had the most inspiring morning with the Anna Freud Center discussing all things mental health. It is so important that we all talk about our feelings and emotions, the good ones and the more difficult ones too. The theme for this year's Mental Health Week is anxiety, and the Anna Freud Center have co-created an animation and resource toolkit to help young people understand, normalize, and manage the feelings around anxiety.
All right, guys, I'm so excited. Catherine and the Waleses are utilizing their social media team more and more. I think it looks absolutely impressive and incredible. So I think it's awesome. So mad props to Catherine and William. And I know that they had this great social media apparatus around the coronation. There's been some talk that will be scaled back. I really hope not, because I think it was really good, these videos that they were doing. And I'd love to see more of them. But back to Harry and Meghan and how they personally have destroyed their own credibility. It's incredible. It's insane. How can you see 2 people self-destruct so completely? And I am watching Harry and Meghan for a while. I've watched royals for well over 10 years. I would consider myself pretty much a royal expert. But watching this, I've watched Harry and Meghan and wondering what'll do it. What will really break the camel's back when it comes to their image? And I always thought it would be something connected to the royals. And in this instance, it's not. It's basically a giant lie at the most and a gross exaggeration at the least. They made the decision to release a statement that so over-dramatized what they experienced that basically nobody believes them. And there's actually this episode of Friends where Phoebe is teaching Joey how to lie. And one of the things she tells him constantly is to keep it simple. And what does he do? He always adds a little extra embellishment on the end. So go ahead and take a watch of this little brief clip here.
Honey, you stink at lying. Well, I do not.
Oh, really? Okay, let me ask you something. Yesterday at the coffee house.
Somebody opened the door to the coffee house, and a raccoon came running in and went straight for your muffin. I said, hey, don't eat that. That's Phoebe's. And he said, Joey, you stink at Lion. What am I going to do?
So I think that's key. That's key to Harry and Meghan, why this thing has come apart for them. Because the thing is that if you are going to share a crazy, wild story about this dramatic car chase through Manhattan, you need to have your facts straight, because none of this is making sense. So number one reason why this is killing their credibility is that people who live in Manhattan can tell you this situation that they're describing seems impossible to them. Every person who has spent time in Manhattan, who has lived there, and that's a lot of people. You're talking about millions upon millions of people. Now, if you were telling us maybe in the streets of Kansas that you had a similar situation, not everybody's been there, but a lot of people have been to New York. It's a #1 tourist destination. So the idea, if you've been in the streets of Manhattan, which are clogged, which are crazy, which I've also heard are actually even more stuffed up because a lot of people aren't taking the subway because it's too dangerous. What's happening is there's a lot of cars in the street. And that means that Harry and Meghan, that their idea that they were going and doing this dramatic 80-mile-an-hour car chase like Omid Scobie suggested, is just probably physically impossible. Pretty much everybody sees that. But as it turns out, perhaps the statement was made apparently in an emotional moment. So go ahead and take a listen to Omid Scobie here.
I think it's important to remember that the statements that we get from the mayor, from the NYPD, these are sort of very much about the facts. What we heard from Harry and Meghan's team was also an emotional statement. This was a couple that I understand still this morning was shaken up.
All right, guys, so Omid Scobie claims that he's not the mouthpiece of the Sussexes, but he's pretty much the only commentator I've heard who's like, oh my gosh, this happened, this was awful, it was dramatic, it was as bad as they say it is. But it doesn't really make any sense. I've detailed yesterday about how NYPD basically pushed back on this, said, well, it was challenging, but it wasn't bad. And then we also had the mayor going, well, I don't see how there could be a 2-hour street chase in Manhattan, but even a 10-minute one is bad. So again, even there are people who you would think might be their supporters, you know, considering the mayor and the NYPD and various people in the media, nobody's really buying this. Even ABC, which still employs Omid Scobie as a royal commentator, did not find a lot of evidence for their story. So this is according to what was posted on Piers Morgan's program. It says, along the way, police sources said photographers on bicycles are visible on security cameras, but not the kind of caravan described by sources close to Harry and Meghan. The police interaction with the couple lasted no more than 20 minutes, according to police sources. If the episode lasted the 2 hours Meghan and Harry say it did, it was because their security felt the need to take it a circuitous route back to where they were staying. And there was a conservative commentator I was listening to talking about how he has to use security oftentimes for him and his family. And the thing that never made sense to me is that Harry and Meghan, he's like, I don't understand why as a security guy you would move them from a secure car with blacked out window shades to a taxi cab with a driver you don't really know. And you don't know if he can get you to the location in a timely and safe way. And that's entirely true. It doesn't make any sense for them. Because even to me, I don't know that much about security. But why would you take them from a secure vehicle with blackout shades to a non-secure vehicle flagging down a random taxi? It just doesn't make any sense. There's been a couple of instances where somebody said, well, it was a decoy tactic, which I could kind of see. But again, you're running a big risk by having your security guard go out there and flag it. You're not bringing them into the station. And these shades, these cars are see-through. And that's completely different than the cars they were using. So it made it really easy for the photographers to get the shot. And so that makes a lot of people question things as well. And the other possibility I heard, which I believe is true too, is that what's come out is that according to the photographers and the agency that sent them out, is that Harry and Meghan's team were actually the ones driving erratically. And I think this is what happened, is that Harry, we know, has become extremely belligerent under Meghan. And Meghan winds him up. And so she kind of sort of acts like the peacekeeper, but she's really the one winding him up. So he's probably belligerently yelling at the driver's going, you need to go this way, you need to go that way, you need to lose them, lose them, lose them. And so the tension results in them all driving like madmen. And the paparazzi guys are like, okay, we want the picture. And what I thought too is that if the chase lasted as long as they say, the paparazzi were like, okay, this is Manhattan. Everybody lives pretty close here. Like, there's not a far distance that you need to drive. This is not California. California is, in a lot of ways, even in LA, is very, very spread out. So it could take you, let's say you're in Los Angeles, you want to get to San Diego, or San Diego to Los Angeles. It will take you 2 hours to get there or more. But when it comes to Manhattan, it shouldn't take you 2 hours to get there. So the paparazzi were constantly following them, thinking at some point they'll get to their destination, and then they kept going. So the people who were contributing to this chase, and I think this is the conclusion a lot of people are coming to, were Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They were making the situation more unsafe by not going to this secure location. And if they were so worried about their friends' anonymity, why not book a hotel, book an alternative venue, something where you could use that secret entrance and you don't have to go in front of the press, or you don't have to compromise where this person lives, even though everybody in Manhattan lives in a high rise pretty much. So there would be a couple people sure in that building that you could guess Harry and Meghan were staying with, but it's not like confirming anything, and it's not, I wouldn't say, that big a deal. And again, if you were so worried about it, you knew people were going to come to this event. You knew the paparazzi were coming. You called them. And then you expect them to not follow you back to where your residence because they were hoping to get more pictures because they have a deadline and they want to make money. And as a couple, as a royal couple, you have made them yourselves available. You want your picture taken. Meghan grins like a madman when the photographers are on her. And I think she still enjoys it even in this paparazzi moment. But I think Harry definitely was very, very stressed because I think to him, yes, it was a reminder of Diana. But that, I think, is a Harry and Meghan issue, particularly a Harry issue, not as much a Meghan issue. But she wants the Diana narrative. And I think that's coming to the forefront too, is that everybody sees that the chase thing doesn't make sense. So they're like, okay, well, maybe we all see the connections to Diana, but the Diana case was different. Some people don't know this. Some people still think the paparazzi killed Diana. It wasn't that. She was being driven by a drunk driver. Her driver was drunk, and she wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Those were the two main factors in her death, and his speed. He was speeding because he was drunk and he wasn't sure where he was going, and he hit a pillar in a tunnel. And if she had her seatbelt on, she might have survived. And ironically, Harry and Meghan in that car were not wearing their seatbelt. So again, this whole narrative that they're trying to concoct about this near catastrophic car chase, it fails under the weight of their own adjectives. They embellished it to such a point that everybody was looking for the falsehood. Everybody was looking for the inaccuracies. And I will also say another thing I heard on Twitter, and I don't know if it's true, but it made sense too, that if it's true that their team, their security, were the ones driving most erratically, then it's possible that, according to reports, they might have been pulled over and they might have been taken to the police station. And that's why perhaps they had to get into taxi, because at some point the police were like, you have to stop driving like this. So let's get you in here and we'll get you where you want to go. Because even in that paparazzi video, the cops were trying to get by, going to a call, and they went the opposite way from Meghan. So they weren't really protecting him at that point anymore. There didn't seem to be any security following in them. And again, too, I think this is a second point which ruins their credibility on this story, is that no Hollywood person has come to their defense or support on this. No one, pretty much. We don't have maybe Angelina Jolie, we don't have Britney Spears, we don't have Paris Hilton, we don't have so many, like the Kardashians, so many public figures who are followed constantly by the paparazzi. None of them are coming out and saying, we've got to change the paparazzi culture, we got to address this issue. None of them are saying that. And what this screams to me is that they're looking at this scenario and they're going, so we've dealt with the same thing. So why are you making a big deal out of this? We deal with this all the time. And Harry and Meghan, I think one of their biggest flaws always is that they want to be seen as royal, and yet they're not royal anymore. And because of this, it's hard for them to understand or comprehend that you don't get a motorcade because you're a celebrity now. You're not royalty. Yes, you have a title, but that doesn't mean diddly squat anymore because you left the institution where that matters.
This is like explaining gravity to a chicken.
So you are now average Joe. And average Joe celebrity in this case, is followed by the paparazzi sometimes. And that's something you have to deal with. And that's something you have to learn to deal with. And that they didn't anticipate it, I think is more on their security team than anything else. But when you think of Diana's death especially, a lot of celebrities came out and talked about the paparazzi and how that they can be dangerous and aggressive sometimes. And again, that hasn't happened here at all. Because I think all of them are looking at this going, I see the danger here, yet at the same time, I'm also myself thinking, well, it's not that bad. I've had worse. I'm sure there's some celebrity stories about the paparazzi that would frighten most of us. But that's part of the social contract here. If you are a celebrity, you will be followed by the paparazzi if you are high-ranking enough. And if you call them to an event, you have to accept that maybe, just maybe, they might follow you to the place where you're staying, so you want to address that. This is a failure of Harry and Meghan's security team. It's not a failure of the paparazzi. And Harry and Meghan continuing to try to blame the paparazzi is completely and utterly wrong. And it's just not going well for the two of them at all. Just not going well. So this whole fiasco, I feel like, just gets worse and worse and worse. So the third reason that this continues to crumble is that Harry and Meghan have apparently made a rather outrageous demand to Backgrid regarding these pictures, to such a point where they were able to clap back pretty cleverly and really put the brakes and really shame Harry and Meghan for even trying to go this route. So this is what it says. Harry and Meghan's legal team fired off a letter to Backgrid Photo Agency claiming in part they needed the agency's footage of the chase to shore up their own security, which is not bad. That's not a bad thing to say. You know what? Hey, let's look at it. We need to address our security. We obviously failed here. Do you mind if we see the video? But of course, Harry and Meghan, that's not what they said. They said, we hereby demand that Backgrid immediately provide us with copies of all photos, videos, and or films taken last night by the freelance photographers after the couple left their event and over the next several hours. And Backgrid said to pound sand. They said, Backgrid's lawyer has rejected the Sussex's demand, saying in a letter, in America, as I'm sure you know, property belongs to the owner of it. Third parties cannot just demand to be given to them, as perhaps a king can do. Perhaps you should sit down with your client and advise them that his English rules of royal pejorative to demand that the citizenry hand over their property to the crown were rejected by this country long ago. We stand by our founding fathers. That is an epic burn if I ever heard one. That is so, so epic. And again, Harry and Meghan's credibility here is completely on the line because they're not asking. They're not asking nicely, going, hey, we clearly see that we messed up here. We would just like to figure out what we did wrong. No, that's not what they're doing. They're demanding that this company hand over the pictures. You can't demand that. You're not a king here. You're not a king of anything. Even the president of the United States probably can't really demand in that way. There's something called freedom of speech. I know Harry said that he thought the First Amendment here was bonkers. And he is increasingly looking, though, like the bonkers one, because obviously, to make a demand like that makes it seem like you're trying to cover your butt. You're trying to cover your butt because you messed up, that you don't have the evidence to back up what you're claiming. So you're demanding things from other people because you need to figure out how to spin this because this is not going well for you. That's what this screams to me is, I need X because we tried to do Y and Y is not working out for us. So Harry and Meghan doing that, huge miscalculation, misstep. And people just, again, mock them for it because at the end of the day, they can't do that and it makes them look silly. Though if they continue to do that, people will continue to call them out on it. So that's not too bad. But doing something like that reminds us of a couple things. Number one, that you are royal, but also that you're not royal. You are royal in terms of you have a title, but you have no power here. If you want power, go back to the freaking United Kingdom and stop messing around in our country. It's just so galling that he had the arrogance to even tell his lawyers to say that, or that they thought that was okay. Their lawyers should have known better. But of course, Harry and Meghan's lawyers, they just want to continue the gravy train. So they won't tell their principals, no, you can't ask that. So they just let them do it and let the cards fall where they may. It's really quite pathetic. And now we get to point number 4. Why, again, their credibility here seems to be completely falling apart. And that is because The royal family itself made no stinking comment, nor does it want to. This is according to Victoria Ward. She said the lack of personal contact and Buckingham Palace's refusal to publicly acknowledge or comment on the incident is understood to have frustrated the couple, who friends suggested hoped to garner more support. Okay, so was this a cry for help? Was this a cry for attention? What was this then? Because the royal family knows to a certain extent, they've known this for a long time, that Harry and Meghan like to spin a lot of tall tales and that they can't respond to everything unless they know where the truth lies. And so they were smart here, going, you know what? We're just gonna let this ride because we don't know if they're telling the truth. Because Harry has told us multiple times that his family believes he's delusional and paranoid. And so when they hear a story about this, they think they're delusional and paranoid. So let's let this play out for a while and then let's get into the truth. Yesterday, Omid Scobie said something similar as well on Twitter. He said, spokespersons for both King Charles and Queen Camilla and Prince William and Princess Kate have declined to comment. I understand that no member of the royal family has reached out to the Sussexes since today's news broke 4 hours ago. Yeah, because they don't trust Harry and Meghan. They don't trust them, so they're not going to respond because they can't trust Harry and Meghan's version of the truth. And that is the death knell, I think, in a lot of ways. Harry and Meghan, even if their own family doesn't trust them, because think about it, think of what happened if Charles had gone bombastic on the paparazzi in the States, and then all this stuff had come out about how basically the whole story was hogwash. He's the king, he's the head of state. If he makes this huge comment about what's happening in a foreign country without all the facts, he looks a fool. And Harry and Meghan, I guess, want him to look like fools. The monarchy's like, we're gonna ride this out. We're gonna see where this goes because we don't know if we can trust this situation. We don't know if any of this is true. So we're gonna wait, we're gonna hold. And they were exactly right. Harry and Meghan's credibility is done for. It is donezo. There are so many holes in this story. People who've lived in New York, visited New York, all think this story is hogwash. The NYPD, the mayor's office, basically everybody there, everybody who has an interest in this in some form or another, either because they're part of the city or whatever, are all saying that this story doesn't make any sense and it doesn't hold. And this is catastrophic news for Harry and Meghan because this week was supposed to be the launch of Meghan 2.0. She is signed with William Morris Endeavor. She was quiet until after the coronation, and now she's going to make her great ascent with the Ms. Awards, which nobody of prominence intended. And one woman who did said that Meghan is basically vain, vapid, and she has really nothing to offer. She's not an activist. She's not a feminist. She is basically an empty vessel spouting nonsense and word salad. That is who Meghan is. So it's no surprise that she came up with this story. But if Harry and Meghan are hoping to reinvigorate brand Sussex, figure out how to make their royal thing in the United States work, this news, this story was an incredibly stupid move. And then making the demand that they give them all the pictures and videos, this demanded backgrid, is like doubling down on stupid. You guys made the wrong move here. You should apologize and move on. One of the great things about the United States is that an apology can go a really long way if you're wrong. Obviously, if you're not wrong, don't apologize. But if you are wrong, apologize. And then usually the American public is pretty good about forgiving and moving on, especially if they see really a act or acknowledgement of they're sorry and that they recognize that they've done wrong. Harry and Meghan aren't doing that. And because of that, because their inability to say, we're sorry, we were wrong, we exaggerated, it's just going to continue getting worse and worse and worse for them. And Harry and Meghan have diarrhea of the mouth. They can't stop talking. So there was one thing I saw on Twitter that perhaps Harry and Meghan are staying at Gayle King's house, who actually did throw them under the bus a bit with some of her statements going, I'm not sure I totally buy this. That even though the couple were scared, that maybe not everything happened the way they said it did. And I think one of the ways Harry and Meghan could try to address this, because again, they're not bright people, is that they'll try to talk their way out of it. And the way they can do that is to do another interview, this time with Gayle King, explaining what happened in this dramatic car chase. And I just don't feel like that'll work well for them again, because again, the whole thing is that you lied. You lied. There's no excusing that. Yes, it was an emotional moment, but it was your PR team's responsibility to say, no, you need to walk that back. I suggested what I would have done if I was their PR person, say, we've made a report to the NYPD, we took down license plates, numbers, descriptions, and we made an official complaint to the police And we are hoping for a good investigation on this. They didn't do that. They released a statement hoping for publicity and sympathy, but it doesn't work anymore. The idea of a victim culture, although that's still here, it's starting to wane thin on people. And Harry and Meghan are the poster childs for, we are a victim, see us as a victim, give us all the publicity we want, give us all the attention we want, and we are victims. And again, that's not how any of this works. And because of the death of Brand Sussex, the brand of Meghan 2.0, I think, is also dead. This was Meghan's opportunity to relaunch herself, especially after signing with William Morris and Endeavor, this huge talent agency. Because Meghan Markle doesn't have a lot of talent. Her Duchess title doesn't imbue her with the innate talent that she lacked as an actress before and as a creative before. She doesn't magically have it now, but they signed her. And you can imagine this is your first little bit. This is your first kind of relaunch, dipping your toes in, changing the narrative of your main player. And she goes and does a stunt like this. And although it could have been designed as a way to garner attention, garner sympathy, they went too far. You cannot create and publish this incredibly dramatic story if you don't have the receipts. And the problem is Harry and Meghan don't have the receipts. And because of that, nobody trusts them. And the credibility that they had with the general public, what they had left of it, is continuing to fall apart because the people who don't trust Harry and Meghan still don't trust them. The people who trust them still trust them. But those on the fence, those that Harry and Meghan needed to pull over to their side are going, hey, you know what? This story just don't make sense. And this is why I think Harry and Meghan, their world is crumbling. Sussex Brand 2.0 is crumbling. And the people who pulled the trigger, who pressed on the big button to explode it, are Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. They are the arbiters of their own demise. And it is both sad to see in a way, but also kind of nice for them to get their just reward. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again really, really soon. Bye.